so much for joining us today. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine and really great weather that we're having. Today, the city is continuing with its weekly press conference. We've been doing this for several weeks now, as an opportunity to provide you, the public, with opportunities to hear updates from the city on our operations and updates that affect you as City of Duluth residents. Each week, we provided the opportunity for residents to submit questions to info.mn.gov. These will be selected at random and asked at the completion of the press conference following staff presentations. Joining us today on the call to provide updates are Mayor Emily Larson, Director of Workforce Development Elena Fauché, Director of Planning and Economic Development Chris Lynch, and our Fire Chief Sean Crige. We also have our City Administrator Noah Schuckman, who is also on the call and available for questions if need be. So Mayor Larson, I will get you all queued up here. I can find you, and there you go.
Great. Kate, can you hear me okay? Looks like, okay. Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a beautiful day to be in Duluth, so that's great. I am actually in the office today, so there's probably a little bit of echo that you will hear because I'm not in my little tiny hillside home, but I am at City Hall. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about today. We do have several announcements, as we usually do. We are now in the process of slowly reopening City Hall for use by staff and the public. And I want to personally thank all of our staff, many of whom have continued to work at their work sites. Our first responders, our utility staff, librarians that came back, you know, a variety of different roles. People have continued to work on site. We have, in addition, of course, had hundreds of people working from home. And so we are continuing to honor the health and safety of our staff and the need for you to access us. You know, certainly press conferences like this are one way we do that. We will continue to support the health of staff as we slowly reopen the building. And here's what we are expecting that to start looking like. We anticipate and hope that sometime next week, we will begin to be open in City Hall to the public by appointment only. So we will want you to call ahead. We will continue to do as much as we can virtual and online because we want to continue to do physical distancing to help meet the needs and support good health choices. We will have a central desk and kind of information station down on the first floor. We will ask everybody to access the building through one set of doors that will be accessible for people of all ability levels. And then we will have a staffed desk in that rotunda of City Hall. We will have 2 meeting rooms available that we will use throughout the day. We will clean them in between meetings. And we are going to try to keep the public really on that main first floor. And again, we will have good hygiene standards. We will be requiring masks in City Hall and in our public facilities, and we will be doing that for staff and for the public. If you come into City Hall and have an appointment and you do not have a mask, we will provide that for you. So we are thinking about how we can continue to serve you and how we can continue to be a good partner in your health and meet the needs of this community. Last week, President Anderson spoke about all city council meetings remaining virtual until council break, which is July 20th. So throughout the summer, we are really going to encourage as much of this as possible. Phone meetings, online meetings, Zoom, WebEx, those kinds of things. And then we will really limit the number of any kind of public meeting that will happen here in City Hall or in other locations that belong to the city. So we are thinking about how to reopen safely. I know you are too. And we've gotten a lot of questions from businesses and other public entities wondering how it is that we are approaching it. So we have about a 13-page document that we are working through, and we have a lot of staff who are sharing their opinions and views to help ensure your safety and ours as well. So I want to thank them very much for that. I want to let you know how hard we are working to get every single dollar that we can to support our COVID-19 activities and our loss of revenues from the state and from the federal government. A few months ago now, because it's already May, 2 months ago, the CARES Act passed out of Congress, the first CARES Act. It allocated $2.2 billion to the state of Minnesota. Some of that money is set aside for counties or local units of government that have 500,000 people or more. In the state of Minnesota, that is Hennepin and Ramsey County. A portion of that $2.2 billion is set aside for them, but a remaining $667 million remains at the state level for cities. It is sitting there. It was intended to be allocated by the legislature. It did not happen during the session. If Minnesota doesn't allocate this money before the end of the year, it goes back, and cities are hemorrhaging. So I need you to know how hard we are working. While there is no legislative session, there's a special session that could come June 12th. That is weeks away. We know that there are, divisions and disagreements that need to be worked out between the legislature and the governor and lieutenant governor, but we implore that there be the actions needed and necessary to support municipalities, because we are literally, it feels like we are hemorrhaging and people are just tossing us Band-Aids. So I need you to know how hard we are working for that. This weekend, I also spoke with United States Senator Amy Klobuchar, and we talked at length about the financial impact of COVID-19, not just on the health and wellness of our community and the healthcare implications, but also, as we have discussed, the revenue aspect of our budget. So we are, moving as fast as we can in all of those directions. And I really need you to know that, because as I say to our team when we talk several times a week, our leadership team, we are making the best decisions we can with the information we have now. And the reality is there just isn't enough to help us all out and get everything that we need done. So it's important to me that you have a sense of how hard we are working there for you. Last night, the Duluth City Council approved an African Heritage Commission, and it came on a day that felt really important. A lot of other issues of the day really emerged in the state of Minnesota yesterday. So I am so happy for Councillor Kennedy, who took the lead in the charge to establish the African Heritage Committee, along with her sponsors, her co-sponsors, President Gary Anderson and Vice President Renee Van Ness. So I thank that trifecta who thought through how we can help ensure that people are included and they feel seen, heard, and valued in the city of Duluth. We have had a couple of questions come in from you about the intent of that commission and how it will be staffed. It's really best for the questions about intent to be directed to Councillor Kennedy. The ordinance is so thoughtful, and a lot of the material you're looking for is likely right in that document. But Councillor Kennedy can certainly fill that out with additional context. As it relates to staffing, we anticipate staffing that commission in the very same way we do the Indigenous Commission, which is to say that we provide a portion of staff time to help support the autonomy and decision-making of the commission. The commission's work will be led by commission members, as is often the case with many of our commissions. And when we have items that we are working on as a city, we will work in consultation with that commission. So I'm really so grateful for the leadership of this Duluth City Council. I'm grateful for the day in which that it was brought forward and passed unanimously. So congratulations to Councillor Kennedy, but more importantly, thank you. I think that's it for me right now. You're going to get a lot of other information coming at you, and I will remain, of course, on the line and be available for any questions. So I think I'm done for now. Thank you, Kate.
Great, thanks, Emily. Next up, we have the Director of Planning and Economic Development, Chris Flinge. Chris?
Hi, Kate. Good afternoon. As Kate said, I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development. Really, I've just got two updates for for the citizens. One is, if you'll recall, I think last week I talked about that the fund that DEDA had set aside $400,000 to assist businesses in a forgivable loan program, and then those applications were open. I think it opened the day of the press conference, Wednesday through Friday. We had about 73 applicants, and we partnered with the Entrepreneur Fund, and they'll be working through those applications and making those awards, and those businesses will be notified as that works through, and there'll be updates to the board, because the forgiveness is really earned through returning back to normal activity within 2 years. So a lot of work will be going on over the next month or so. That program was well subscribed. We'll probably be able to help about 20 or 30 businesses, depending on what the loan amounts are at the end of the day. And then the other facet of that work, partnering with Entrepreneur Fund, is that they'll also be able to provide other assistance to businesses and leverage other loan programs. So even if they aren't selected for the funding that DEDA provided, there are other loan instruments that are available. So again, we encourage businesses, as we think about reopening and coming back online, to reach out to our partners, both at Entrepreneur Fund and at the Northland Small Business Center. They're also there to assist businesses as well, and DEDA provided funding to them for about $30,000 to provide counseling and support for businesses. So we're excited that we are, as the mayor talked about, slowly reopening. I guess the second thing I wanted to share was that we are working hard to allow businesses to leverage as much space as they can as they reopen, so that they can do retail through the sidewalk use permits. The planning division has established a landing page where we're trying to streamline and create a one-stop shop where you're able to process that. And Kate and I whipped up something that we thought would be helpful for folks. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. And Kate, if you want to pull up that application, really all we need is a really simple site diagram, something like this, that shows kind of the sidewalk, where the road is. This is a storefront, a coffee shop, and then what they're wanting to do. And again, the planning staff will help you walk through this. It's a 2-page document basically for the application. There is a insurance requirement that comes with it, but the city has waived all the fees, and our staff is really prepared to work with businesses. I think on the website and the landing page, we said you can either mail it or email. Email would be much more efficient to send a PDF, and our team will be ready to assist you as you walk through that. Even though the liquor license are handled by someone else and the curbside, we've created a central page, and our staff will help walk that through. So we've got all the contact information. We're working with the fire department. They actually take a look at at tents and those types of coverings, which can be incorporated. But we certainly understand that businesses and customers may want to be able to operate in more open spaces. So our group is really committed to helping businesses do that. So we really encourage businesses to go to our website, look on the planning page, and you'll see the links, and you can do the outreach. So that's really all I had, Kate.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. And just as a reminder, we will put the links to the planning department in the post, and then also we'll have a follow-up on our social media page so that folks can be able to see this information. But without that, next we're going to have our fire chiefs talk. So Chief Gruget, take it away. Oops, Sean, hang on one second. I'm really sorry. I did not unmute you. Sorry about that. Now you're ready.
So, well, we're all got a few glitches here and there as we're moving through this. Thanks for everyone for being here. Good afternoon. As Chris mentioned, the city continues to work hard to ensure that businesses can reopen safely while still following Governor Walz's executive orders. As Governor Walz outlined it in his original announcement, it is the local fire department's jurisdiction to determine occupancy limits for businesses, assemblies, and other public settings. So some of you may not know that the fire department's life safety division, and specifically Fire Marshal McComb, can help determine those occupancy loads for local businesses. This means determining how many people can safely fit into a space while still following the fire code. And there are restrictions for this outdoor use that we're talking about as well. So some people, I think, get confused if they're putting up something that's patio space or outside of their building. There's still requirements that they need to follow, and we're here to help you determine those. So we've received a number of requests from business owners asking for help determining what is 50% or 25% occupancy rating or capacity. And we would like to help clarify some of those questions and provide some local resources for business owners. Kate's going to put up something that came from the state fire marshal actually. So as part of Governor Walz's Stay Safe Minnesota order, retail stores were able to open on May 18th. They were required to have a social distancing plan and were open for 50% of their capacity. Capacity and occupancy loads are the same thing. Just occupancy load is kind of code talk. That's how it's referred to in the fire code. So we want to make sure that everybody knows that those are the same thing. 50% occupancy is the same as capacity. If you're a retail business owner and you have questions about that, you can feel free to contact our life safety office anytime. The phone number there is 730-4380. We also have email links on our website at fire department info at duluthmn.gov, or if you hit anyone else, if a phone call comes to my line or one of the other operations office lines, we'll make sure to pass that along to Fire Marshal McComb or someone else who can help you. So as we're seeing now, the State Fire Marshal's Office created sample site plans for businesses to meet social distancing and also that 50% capacity requirement. There's actually a couple different links that we have on our both City of Duluth main website under the COVID-19 link, the red banner at the top. You can also find it on our fire department link that helps outline these guidelines for retail businesses, salons, assemblies, and also some separations. There's been businesses that are trying to, really be creative and problem solving and how they can help stop the spread. But we need to make sure if you're putting up any separations that they still meet the fire code requirements. So as you can see, the layout of this store provides space for customers to walk around with at least 6 feet apart, and also at checkout, maintaining social distancing. If you're the owner of a salon, the occupancy is 25%. And you also need to note that if you're a new business, these square footage requirements are different. It actually requires more square feet per person for a new business than for an existing business. And that also is different, as you saw in the slides before, for retail businesses. So if you have questions or you're confused about that, please don't hesitate to call our office and we can help you out. So our goal is to help everyone reopen safely. We're here to help if you have questions or looking for tips. You meet the occupancy load requirements. One thing that I'd also like to clarify is that you do not need a letter from our office allowing you to reopen or anything that's officially stating a occupancy rating number. Oftentimes you'll see those in restaurants, movie theaters, or something that say occupancy load 100 people. We don't need that posted. What is 25% of your normal occupancy load? And you do not need a letter from our department that allows you to open. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and we wish you all the best of luck reopening your business. And again, if you have any questions, please contact our life safety division or the fire department, any general line, and we will make sure to pass those along to the appropriate person. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Chief Creuset. And then finally, we have Elena Fauché, who is our Director of Workforce Development. Elena, you are all set.
Awesome. Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Elena Fauché. I'm the Director of Workforce Development. Wanted to give you an update on what our office is doing. We know this is a difficult time for many, and we at Career Force, across the street from City Hall, are here and ready to serve those of you who've been laid off, and to help both workers and businesses get back on their feet and figure out what's next. So our physical location remains closed at this time, though we're working hard making plans to be able to reopen on a limited basis in the future. We'll keep you posted about that. But in the meantime, we're continuing to deliver high quality services virtually. So the best place to find out more specifics about what we're offering is on careerforcemn.com. And you can click on a link there to lead you to virtual interactive services. But just to give a couple of examples, we have an interview skills workshop today at 1 o'clock. We have a resume writing workshop tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We have virtual job clubs that have engaging topics and guest speakers for job seekers on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. every Tuesday, and then a variety of virtual career fairs and employer hiring events. And we're constantly adding more webinars, workshops. There's also one-on-one assistance. You can sign up to have a virtual meeting with a career counselor one-on-one. You can sign up to get your resume reviewed and get some feedback on that. So more information about all of that is available on careerforcemn.com. If you're a young person between the ages of 16 and 24 who's looking for a job this summer or needs help making plans for next fall, Youth Employment Services, or Yes Duluth, can help. That's our youth program. If you visit the Duluth Workforce Development page on the city website, you can learn more. Yes Duluth is also on Facebook, and I know that's a way that a lot of folks engage with us and find out a little bit more. But we have summer job opportunities, and then we have a variety of other services available. If you're over the age of 55 and unemployed, we have special services for you. We can help you access training or find the right job for you. So again, visit the Duluth Workforce Development page on the city website to learn more, or you can call our main number, 218-302-8400, to learn more about our programs for older workers. We're also working hard to help employers during this time. We're helping them navigate uncharted waters. We have a COVID page on the Workforce Development part of the city website with up-to-date information and resources for employers, including information from DEED, Department of Labor and Industry, OSHA, and then local resources to help employers plan. We're actively working with employers right now to come up with strategies for their workforce as they plan to return to work. And that includes, navigating unemployment when they're calling employees back. It includes just coming up with training strategies for situations where employees need to be retrained or need to be trained on new skills, hiring strategies at a time when hiring isn't the same process that it used to be. So please reach out if you have questions, you need support, we're there to help. And any employers that are hiring, and we do have employers that are hiring right now, please reach out and let us help you. It's really easy for job postings to get lost in the noise right now, because there's so much else going on. So we can help get the word out. We can host virtual hiring events. We can really try to help you attract applicants to your positions. So again, our main number is 218-302-8400. That phone line is staffed every day. Our email address is workforcedevelopment@duluthmn.gov, so folks can reach out by email as well. And please feel free to ask any questions. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Elena. I now wanted to open it up for questions, but before I did that, I wanted to start with a question from a resident that is for Chris Fleege. This is for the 1200 fund for the Fast Tracks grant, and the question is, when will the funds be distributed to entities that were told they had been chosen to receive the grant funds? Chris, is that something that you could answer? I can unmute you.
Yes, it's my understanding that they have been issuing checks in waves. So as soon as people complete the agreement, the grant agreement, and it's mailed back, it gets processed through our payroll. So we've been running checks once a week. So I would suspect, I think there was one last wave going in. So those folks should be receiving them if they haven't already. So certainly by next week, they will have received them. I'm quite certain of that.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I also just wanted to point out, too, that Adam Fulton is the City of Duluth staffer for that program. That's not a 1200 Fund is not a City of Duluth organization, and they're separate. So if you do have questions, please reach out either to me, and I can help facilitate that, or just send them to Adam Fulton at Fulton, Fulton, at duluthmn.gov. I do see that Peter has a question. So Peter, I will unmute you. Go ahead.
Hi. Mayor Larson, you were talking about this special session possibly coming up. What do you think the odds are of being able to access a piece of that $667 million that's kind of still on the table right now? I mean, is that likely to be something that could offer the city some relief, or is that kind of a Hail Mary?
Well, I smiled a little bit when you started asking the question, Peter, and thank you for the question, because it just feels like, how can it not go to cities? I don't know how I could make the case any stronger, any clearer. I don't actually understand how more specific I could be in articulating the need, the impact, the devastating, impact of COVID-19 on our budget. So yes, I certainly hope, and we are working towards that and making a very strong case. We are working with statewide media. We are working with every commissioner we can. We are working with the governor's office directly. We are working with legislators through our lobby team. I mean, it is, even though a special session isn't likely until June 12th or so, it is something we work on all day, every day. So it is certainly my hope and intent. And I would also say, in regards to the special legislative session, there was no fix brought forward to help us with the workers' comp element that was intended to get kind of fixed at the state level. So we are still anticipating that $3.8 million, I think, budget gap to provide workers' comp to frontline workers who come down with COVID-19. We certainly want and really believe that workers need to be taken care of. That's a big ticket price for us to be facing. And so we were told that the legislature would be working on that, and we are eager to get that fixed. And then finally, the bonding bill. I was just reviewing the three proposals next to each other, the House, the Governor, the Senate. We are in all three of those versions for the $13.5 million seawall project, and different varying amounts. The House and the Governor's version are very similar. The Senate version is much lower, maybe $5 million, but we see a path by which we can get back to where it needs to be. And of course, again, my biggest job is to make it hard for people to say no to Duluth. That is my job as a mayor, and nobody works harder than I do to be very clear in our needs and to be very clear in our ask and to make it uncomfortable for people to not back the city up in our needs and our asks. So I hope that answered your question, Peter. Oh, the other thing, actually, I did want to mention is that we are still waiting for clarity on what some of that $667 million allocated to municipalities could be used for. So, right now it has been positioned as helping to cover COVID-19 related costs. And those are pretty finite for us. There's a very specific set of costs we have to, whether it's overtime or supplies, materials, technology to have people working from home. My understanding so far is that it is not intended to supplement revenues that have completely dropped. And again, because we do benefit from a sales tax, a tourism tax, and property tax. And as I talked about in our budget presentation several weeks ago, all of those are heavily impacted. So those are parking funds, those are utility funds, everything's impacted. Next week, we should get a read pretty quickly on tourism tax and sales tax for the previous, for 2 months ago. As I talked about last week, or maybe the week before, tourism tax dropped 61%. In that first month, we are about to get our second month read on that tax. The same for sales tax, really has been pretty vacant since the state pushed the collection without penalty to further into summer, and so we aligned with that. So it's going to be hard for us to gauge some of that. That's my way of saying we're also looking for the clarity on what those funds would be able to be used for.
Thanks, Mayor Larson. Peter, I'll come back to you in a sec if you've got a follow-up, but I know, Bailey, you've got a question, so I just am going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Apologies if this has been asked before because I haven't been able to be on these every week, but we just heard Bayfront Blues Fest is canceled, some of these bigger events. I'm wondering what the city's role is in deciding whether these large events at Bayfront will happen. Obviously, I know the deck is involved too, and what you anticipate the impact of some of these major draws for tourists and for locals will be on the city.
Yeah, Mayor Larson, would you be willing to take that one?
Yeah, thanks, Bailey, for the question. Yeah, every time the first event that was canceled was Grandma's Marathon. And I remember exactly where I was standing when I got the phone call from Shane Bauer on a weekend to inform me that that was the decision their board had made. And a very strong supporter of that decision for the health and safety of participants and volunteers and, the whole thing. But it is so difficult to see the events that we take pride in and that are really important to this community and really put Duluth on a map fall away. And so, right, Bayfront Blues Festival's 3 days, which of course everyone knows, it's incredibly difficult, very painful. The city is not typically intimately involved in that decision making. It really is up to the sponsors, the organizers, and then certainly Bayfront is a part of that discussion in the deck in terms of what can they provide, what kinds of spacing and elements make sense. Often, I think a lot of that has to do with how you can safely have physical distance and still make the event financially work. It's like the combo of that because there's sponsorships involved, there's investments involved, and you need ticket sales to cover it. And so it's a business together. And if the numbers don't work and the health doesn't work, then the event doesn't work. But in short, we are consulted at times, and sometimes we're consulted in the sense of how it's going to be announced or if there's an alternate plan. But often, we place the trust and faith in organizers to make the right call that they need to for the public. But it hurts. It really hurts. And part of it is I know how deeply connected people are to these events. It isn't just important for the city and it's fun to hear it at Bayfront. It's like people build their summer around this time for themselves, their families, their friends in Duluth. We were the decision makers for Fourth Fest and the fireworks, and we chose to move that to a later date. But that's not going to be possible with a lot of the things that are falling off the calendar. They will either go virtual or they will not happen this year. And that hurts.
Thanks, Mayor Larson. Nishay, I know that you had a question, so I will let you answer or ask it. I just need to find you. Hang on one second. Okay, go ahead, Nishay.
Thank you, Kate. I was just wondering, are the services that's going to be offered during the reopening of City Hall, is it going to be on a limited basis, or are you going to be offering all services since everything is appointment only?
Yep, great question. City Administrator Schuckman, would you be willing to take that?
You bet. Thanks for the question, Nishay. I think we are in the process of nailing down exactly what that will look like. Our goal is to offer as many services as possible. I think in general, people will see that they have, for the most part, all city services available to them. But as the mayor mentioned earlier, we will be doing that by appointment and working very hard to be safe for both our staff and for the public as we begin to return to operations in City Hall. And so we're looking for ways to do all city services in the safest and cleanest possible way for everyone involved.
And actually, I had a follow-up question. It's the same thing, but I can wait if you want to move on to the next person.
Yeah, let me just do a first round first, Nishay, and I'll come back to you. Thanks. Dan Crocker, I know you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. Mayor Larson, last week you spoke about the mask issue and talked about your policy and encouraging youth to make masks, et cetera. Shortly after you did that, Mayor Fry in Minneapolis announced a policy down there that would require the public to wear masks in stores and other public buildings and businesses. And I'm curious if you considered doing that as well, and if so, why you landed on the policy you did in terms of choosing not to require them, but quote unquote normalize them.
Thank you, Dan, for the question. And yeah, we have seen a lot of people. Let's see. Hang on, I'm just trying to fix my. I think my videos start my video. Okay. So anyway, we have seen people connect with that issue and, start doing idea generation around what a mask could look like and why that conversation is important as a family to engage in that. I have heard, of course, different cities making a choice about masks. It sounds to me, and I know Mayor Fry very, very well, and it really feels like that's the right choice for the city of Minneapolis based on a variety of factors, variables that are important to him and important to the city. I feel very strongly about masks and choose to wear them myself. And we will be doing that here in City Hall and at public facilities. And as I said earlier, if people come into the building and do not have one, we will provide them. To me, that feels like the best way to proceed here in Duluth. I think every city, every area, unless the governor is going to dictate a statewide approach, I think regions and cities have to be the one to make their best decision moving forward. And I think we can let consumers and residents decide where and how they are comfortable interacting, whether people wear masks and they're required or not. I can tell you, I have had many businesses reach out to me and actually seek support for their decision to require masks. And that can be a strategy that, you can kind of implement that at the city level, and then it supports the business owners or, the operations that want to mandate and make those masks required. I feel strongly about that in the public facilities that we have responsibility for. And I do feel like these are recommendations from the CDC. These are recommendations from the Minnesota Department of Health. We are a public entity, and they are very clear that in public, people can and should be wearing masks, that there is value to it. It will not stop a pandemic. I'm not presuming that it's the way that we get out of this, but it is a gesture we can do to take good care of one another. So I hope that answers your question. I think every city has to figure out their own path for that. Mandating masks for everyone when they're operating in public didn't feel like the right answer for our community. It's also, I should say, and this isn't, the sole reason why, but it is also an enforcement issue. So then my kid who called, if somebody isn't wearing it, then now we're engaging the police or doing enforcement. And to be really honest, I really want our first responders responding to people's health and safety, and less to, an enforcement mechanism that is really about a social contract that you can choose to adopt for one another.
Thanks, Mayor Larson. Dan, I'll come back to you if you have a follow-up on that, but just to continue to be fair, Peter, you still have your hand up, so I didn't know if you had a follow-up question.
Yeah, I have a quick one. We've got the real estate taxes collected now, or supposedly collected, but the county also given people a little forbearance in terms of not charging them late fees if they can demonstrate any kind of a hardship. Do we as a city have a sense as to what those collections look like for city purposes, or is that still waiting for that data?
I'm going to see if Mayor Larson is able to answer that question. Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, Peter, thank you for the question. Let me get back to you with the specifics. When we first forecasted between 5 and 20% of a shortfall, it is within that variable. So it is not feeling like it's 25, 30%. There were days leading up to the collection that I was like, oh my gosh, because the reality is it's about, well, I want to say it was about $7 million we were expecting. I can't quite remember, but at any rate, it was going to be a significant shortfall. It's still within our 5 to 20% bracket, and I will get back in touch with you with the specific answer.
Thank you. And then just continuing to try to go through the list. Bailey, did you have a follow-up question?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thanks. And then Nishay, I know that you had a follow-up question, so I will let you go ahead and ask it.
Thank you. I know a lot of thought went into the idea of phasing a reopening, but can someone explain like what factors other than the governor, governor's executive order, what factors went into you all deciding that the time is now to start phasing the reopening of City Hall?
Sure. So again, I'll give you to our city administrator, Noah Shuckman, to answer that question.
Thank you, Nishay. I think as we look at businesses all over the city reopening and wanting to do our part to help keep the economy of the city going, we recognize that the city of Duluth plays a big part in that, whether it's building permits or business licenses or other opportunities for small businesses to interact with the city. And so we want to make sure that we are doing our part in that. And in addition, we certainly want to make sure that our staff are able to operate at their fullest. And so we're working to get folks back into City Hall in a way that is safe, but also does provide for those opportunities.
Thanks, Noah. And Nishay, I know you've got another question, but I just want to make sure that we're getting everybody. Ron or Katie or anybody else that hasn't answered a question, if you do have something and you want to unmute yourself, I just can't tell if you have something to ask or not. So I'll give you a second if you do have a follow-up question or wanted to ask something. Okay, and so guessing that, Nishay, do you have one more question it looks like that you wanted to ask?
Sure, if the fire chief could answer this question for me. He mentioned there's like still some standards that people have to follow according to fire code. Can he kind of elaborate on like what some of those standards are so people can understand as they prepare to reopen for outdoor seating?
Yep, hang on one second. Sean, you are... Oh my gosh, where are you? Sorry, go ahead. I just didn't want to mute you again. Sorry, go ahead.
No, not a problem. Well, we just want to make sure that everyone's clear that there's still standards with regarding outdoor heaters, like propane heaters that you sometimes see outside. Tents, if they're enclosed on all sides, are not considered outdoor seating. So there are some requirements for tents. There are some requirements then for electrical power that might be run outside. There's still egress issues. So you still may need to have, depending on the square footage and how big it is, how big the area is, you may need to have a secondary exit. So there's just things like that that are in the code that still apply. And we just want to make sure that if there's any questions out there, we can help address those and make sure that we have a safe place for the people, for the customers, for the employees, just because we're dealing with COVID related issues, and as we reopen and we're trying to be creative and make sure that businesses have the opportunity to operate, that they're still following the right codes and essentially offering a safe place for everyone, whether that's employees or customers or just general public. So I don't know if I can specifically answer a question. You know, a lot of it's site specific. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was enough. That's kind of
Okay.
explained. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Nishay. Any other questions before we end today? And if not, I'll just do one more follow-up. I know someone had asked about the 1200 fund, and so I had just gotten an update from one of the staff members there that to date, there's been 121 of the 138 approved grants that have been issued. And so the others are waiting on completed paperwork. So again, I would ask if you are one of those folks to be able to get in touch with 1200 Fund staff. And again, if you need to contact us at info@duluthmn.gov or at Adam Fulton, which is a Fulton, Fulton at duluthmn.gov. So seeing no additional comments or questions, I just want to thank you all again for joining us today. We will be back again next Wednesday at 12:30 with additional updates to share. Thanks so much and enjoy the day.